So this is my Calendly account for my SMMA. All this pink, the purple, these are all sales calls. And in the month of June, my agency had 163 sales calls booked out. Now, obviously the question is, how in the world do you do something like this? Like, how do you get this many calls on the calendar? And the answer might not exactly be what most people think. And what I want to do is share a chart that I'm going to run through with you here in just a second, pretty much explaining how exactly I've managed to do this and get so many calls for such a low cost. So here we are, this is June the 1st, so this is where it ends. And basically there are 4 key things that I want to talk about around this concept of reverse debt. Now it may sound a little weird, so that's why I'm going to break this whole thing down for you. To understand reverse debt, first you need to understand credit and debit. In the traditional sense, a bank will, loan you money. You borrow that money, you spend the bank's money, and then now you owe money to the bank. The bank gets to charge you interest if you don't pay them back in time, so then you end up owing even more money to the bank. That's how the bank makes their money. So they're giving to you, and if you don't pay them back in time, you owe them. Regardless, they're going to get paid back a bare minimum of what they gave out on average, the way they do their risk calculations. Nothing too fancy, nothing too crazy. The thing is though, debt punishment is a thing. What is debt punishment? In short, debt punishment is what happens when you fail to pay your debts back on time, which is actually a series of things. It's not just the simple, oh, you need to pay interest. Well, first off, the interest stacks up over time and it can actually spiral you into a pretty ugly kind of situation where you're struggling to pay off your debt and you're actually like really deep in the hole financially and you're in a lot of trouble. But on the bank side of things, they're just sitting there like, amazing, we have even more money that's owed to us. Sounds good to me. Because they have so much power that they can get this money back from you in some way, shape, or form, and they're going to have to be paid back, whether it's through you or whether it's through, your children or something. So there are 2 sides to debt punishment, right? On one hand, there's, the perspective of the person who's borrowing the money, right? And they're playing this risky game right here. The bank is playing, in a way, a risky game, but they've got it calculated down to a T. And they're expecting all that money to come back to them and more, plus. So this idea of, debt punishment, again, is really the core concept of here's what happens if you fail to pay the money back on time. Now, that being said, this is obvious. We all know these things. How does this apply to business? How does this get me sales calls on my calendar? Evan, you idiot. So relax. Basically, the thing about debt punishment is that it not only applies from a financial standpoint, but it applies in an actions standpoint, and it applies to your business too. There are different types of debt you can take on. For example, tech debt. So here I'm going to talk about tech debt. And what exactly tech debt is? Tech debt is when you bring on a lot of new technology into your business and you fail to set it up properly. Then what happens is, with time, there comes this big, massive, if you're familiar with the concept of entropy, it's essentially the idea that just leaving your bedroom, for example, as is, it's going to get messy or dirty with time, right? There's this spread of disorder that happens with time. And so that's going to happen with anything you do in your business. So if you bring on a new tech stack and you set it up in this really kind of sloppy, unconventional way that's difficult to navigate. You don't document anything. And so when somebody new comes into your business, they're like, what is going on? They're confused. And down the line, once you reach a certain level of scale, now you've got this problem across 200 client accounts if it's just one minor little issue. So there are, and tech debt's just one little simple example. There are other types of debt as well. For example, you can have sales process debt, where let's say you have a brutal sales process, which most people have a brutal sales process. What ends up happening with time if you have sales process debt is that you've got sales reps that come in and then they don't know what they're doing. They never ramp up. They don't make enough money. They leave, and then you have to rehire and you're losing a boatload of money to opportunity costs because all of these reps are coming in and they're not able to hit their numbers in time. You're losing a bunch of sales call bookings and ad dollars and everything like that on this. And it's really just not fun for everybody. for anybody. And to give you an example, a guy that I know, a client that I'm working with right now, he used to work at an agency, and they had a pretty brutal, pretty bad, unpolished sales process. And so basically what happened was they were saying, hey, welcome on in. So you got to book and close your meetings, and you got to generate your own leads too. We'll give you 20% of the commission of the revenue. That's that's their cost per acquisition, or their customer acquisition cost essentially, or their CAC, some people call it. So he was doing this for a while. He was doing it for 6 months. He made them like 85 grand, and he was just like, why am I doing this for somebody else when I could just go and do this myself? That's what happens when you have sales process debt. Nobody's going to stick, right? And the same thing goes with your fulfillment processes, your customer support, your clients aren't going to stick, right? There are these types of debt all over the place where if you don't set things up properly the first time around, you're going to screw yourself. Really, you're going to completely screw yourself, screw the business, screw people within the business, clients, and more. So how does this relate back to reverse debt? Well, the final kind of idea or concept that I want to talk to you about here is basically, by the way, if you're seeing the thing on the side of the screen, this thing here, I'll show you that in a sec. But from your perspective, what we're looking at here is this one quote. If you remember the bank's perspective, right? They're constantly putting money out into the world and then stacking the deck in their favor so that it all and more comes back to them with time, and it's inevitably going to happen because they've done the right calculations. What you want to do is this exact same thing. This is reverse debt. You're the lender. You want to be the lender, right? Because you're the one making the money on other people borrowing your money. Well, what happens if you don't have money and you can't literally lend money? Well, what you want to do is partake in this quote day by day as your agency. A better tomorrow at the cost of today. I have screamed this to some clients. Not literally, but like just repeated over and over and over. Another way of looking at it is planting seeds, right? If you can just plant seeds, plant seeds, plant seeds, plant seeds. I was talking to my buddy, he hit 1 million views on his YouTube channel, and I was saying like, congrats, I remember when you were at 450 subs. He's like, yeah, dude, I remember you were at 80 subs and you were commenting on other people's channels every single day. I used to comment on people's channels for an hour a day. I'd post like 10 thoughtful, insightful comments. I've seen some of you guys see them on the channels I used to post on. And that was how I initially grew my channel. It took me, no word of a lie, like 4 months to get my first like 100 subscribers. It took me like 4 months or something like that. Like it was kind of nutty of doing that for an hour a day. But the compounding later picks up, and I was playing the long game. I knew if I do this and I stack the deck in my favor and I just keep doing this, right? Sit down and watch these YouTube videos that frankly I don't really care that much about, and write some insightful comments on them in order to get viewers to my channel, that eventually it'll pay off as I continue to post and work on my channel and work on my content. Same thing goes in your agency, right? This can be taking sales calls you don't want to take. This can be creating scripts you don't want to create. This can be doing the client work yourself, for example, and not being lazy like everybody else, right? It's hilarious how if you just follow this quote, you'll stand out from everybody. The thing is, it's easy to watch this video and go, oh, sure, idiot, no kidding, right? It's like, but are you doing it? Is the question. And I think I've had this discussion in another video, so I'm not going to rant for too long about it, but take this quote incredibly seriously. Better tomorrow at the cost of today. Plant your seeds, right? This is the concept of reverse debt. If you can do this consistently for a long enough period of time, everything's going to come back to you. Some people will say, trust the process. It's like, sure, but sometimes it's hard to trust the process. But if you just stick to planting seeds and focus on making sacrifices today for the better tomorrow. People talk about sacrifices a lot. Yes, sacrifices are very real, and there are a lot of things that you need to give up in order to, get to the next level. But if you can be the bank, right? You're the one loaning people money. In this case, you're loaning people your information, your skills, whatever it is, right? You're putting the effort in to become great. You're doing the world a favor by becoming great. And then once you become great at what you do, the world's gonna come back and go, oh, here's everything you put in and way more. Like, way more. If you stick to building a business for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, like you'll be able to make millions of dollars, provided you're following, proper strategies and ways of thinking and this kind of thing. But the world eventually comes back and just starts handing you money because you were the one that nobody else is willing to be, who sat down and listened to this every single day for a really long time and as bad as you felt during the day, you still went, screw it, I'm just going to do what's going to make tomorrow a better day. And you just kept on doing it and kept on doing it and then kept on doing it and then kept on doing it. And then later you're at a point where people are like, can I pay you? That's literally what happened with me. Like, I was broke for a long time. I've had a 5-month dry streak in my agency before because I was playing around with pricing and everything like that. And that was a 5-month dry streak after I had already been doing like $5,000 a month. I almost completely exploded and destroyed my business. But I just kept going. I kept working 10 hours a day, right? And I think that's what I was doing at the time. 9 hours a day, 10 hours a day, whatever it was. Because of this right here, reverse debt, that's literally what it is. If you can just sit down and like do more than other people and make it further than other people and actually be willing to like do these things, then eventually you can be the bank. Don't go into all these types of debt. You know, there's financial debt, obviously, tech debt, sales process debt, customer support debt, whatever these other types of debt are. Don't go into these. Become the person giving the loans, right? You're loaning the world your time and you're getting way more money than an hourly rate back. It's actually crazy how this works. If you just do this, your business will go crazy. Now, I'm sure you're probably wondering what this thing was on the side here. Basically, it's it's like an onboarding process Zap, so you can take this as a bonus from this video. But basically, on the sales call, you can have a Google form where the sales rep puts the client, or you are the sales rep most likely, you put the client details into it, and then you can have DocuSign automatically fill those details out through Zapier and send them an email directly. I tried doing it before with sending them the payment link in the launch call, but the Zaps took like 5 minutes to send for some reason. I don't know if they've changed it since, but that was a little inefficient, so I just started sending that stuff by hand, and that's what the reps do now. But this is a little thing that you can do, which will just like automate a little step in your business. But that's it. That's reverse debt. If you can just do this, you'll win eventually.